The Grand Council Chamber of the Galactic Confederation never ceased to amaze me, even after serving as the Xylaxian ambassador for over 30 solar cycles. Today, however, the usual awe was overshadowed by barely contained amusement as I watched my fellow representatives work themselves into a frenzy over the latest threat to galactic stability. Order. Order in the chamber. Supreme Counselor Prax banged his gravity gavel, sending ripples through the quantum-stabilized atmosphere. Ambassador Krill X, please share your security division's assessment of the situation. I rose from my hover seat, straightening my ceremonial robes while suppressing a chuckle. Honorable members of the council, I began, my vocal resonators perfectly modulated. The humans have achieved faster than light travel. The chamber erupted into chaos. Representative Moore, then of the Silicon Consciousness, nearly short-circuited, their crystalline matrix flashing warning patterns. The vaporous collective from Nebula 6 condensed in distress, forming little raindrops of worry that pattered against their containment field. But they were barely splitting atoms a century ago, protested Ambassador Lyra from the Centaurian Alliance. Her bioluminescent patterns flashed danger signals across her epidermis. Precisely my point, I continued, enjoying the mounting tension. They've managed this feat in approximately 1/8 the time it took any of our civilizations. However, I paused for dramatic effect, something I learned from studying human entertainment broadcasts. The Security Council recommends we classify them as a Level 2 civilization at most. The chamber fell silent. Even the usually chatty hive mind of Beta Reticuli stopped their constant background psychic chatter. Level 2 Ambassador Lyra's bioluminescence dimmed in confusion, but their technological advancement rate suggests at least Level 4. Allow me to explain, I said, activating the holographic display. Yes, they've achieved faster than light travel. Yes, they've begun terraforming their neighboring planet. And yes, they've even started experimenting with quantum communications. But look at their society. The display showed scenes from Earth humans going about their daily lives, watching entertainment screens, arguing over resources, celebrating various cultural events. They still use physical currency. They haven't unified their planetary government. They continue to maintain separate nation-states, and most amusingly, they still think they're alone in the universe. This brought a wave of relieved laughter from the assembly. Even Supreme Counselor Prax relaxed his upper appendages. So you're saying they're not a threat, asked the Silicon Consciousness representative, their matrix settling into a more stable configuration. Oh, they're absolutely a threat, I replied cheerfully, just not in the way you're all thinking. Their chaos, their unpredictability, their sheer stubborn determination to do things their own way, that's what makes them dangerous. But dangerous doesn't mean advanced. What do you propose? Prax leaned forward, all four eyes focused intently on me. We should send them a welcome package. Let them think they've been discovered, play into their expectations of advanced alien civilizations. They've been broadcasting their entertainment videos into space for centuries. They've already told us exactly what they expect first contact to look like. The chamber buzzed with consideration. The vaporous collective reformed into its normal configuration, signaling agreement. And when they send their inevitable diplomatic representative, Lyra asked, her pattern showing skepticism. We'll treat them exactly as we would any other Level 2 civilization, I said, my mandibles clicking in amusement. They'll never suspect that we've been watching them since they first split the atom. Let them think they're impressing us with their achievements. It's safer that way. The vote was nearly unanimous. Only the hive mind abstained, citing concerns about humanity's resistance to psychic influence. As the chamber began to empty, Supreme Counselor Prax pulled me aside. You seem rather entertained by all this, Krill X. Can you blame me? We're about to welcome a species that achieved spaceflight because they were inspired by their own fictional entertainment. They created faster than light travel because they couldn't accept that the speed of light was a real limit. They're going to be the most entertaining, in addition to the Confederation in millennia. Prax's upper appendages twitched in concern. Just make sure that entertainment doesn't come at too high a cost. Looking back now, I really should have taken his warning more seriously. But how could any of us have predicted what would happen when humanity sent us their first ambassador? A woman they assured us was completely harmless, totally unthreatening, and absolutely positively not a warrior. They called her Hannah Blackwood, and she was about to turn the entire Galactic Confederation upside down. The day Hannah Blackwood arrived at Starbase Nexus Prime started like any other. I was reviewing trade agreements in my office when every alarm in the station began screaming simultaneously. The quantum shields activated, the defense grid powered up, and the emergency containment protocols initiated, all because a single human ship had somehow appeared directly inside our supposedly impenetrable security perimeter. Ambassador Krill X to the docking bay. Immediately the station AI announced with what I could have sworn was panic in its artificial voice. First contact protocols in effect. I arrived at the docking bay to find Security Chief Nax Rai having what could only be described as a nervous breakdown. All 6 of his arms were gesturing wildly as he berated his staff. How? Just tell me how. We have 47 layers of scanning technology. We have temporal detection grids. We have quantum entanglement barriers. And they just appeared. Actually, a cheerful voice called out from behind us. We've been here for about 20 minutes. We were trying to figure out how to use your docking clamps. Every head, appendage, and sensory organ in the bay turned toward the human woman standing casually beside her ship. She wore what appeared to be formal Earth attire, a simple black suit with a white blouse. Her dark hair was pulled back neatly, and she carried nothing but a small briefcase. "I'm Hannah Blackwood, Earth's diplomatic representative," she announced with a warm smile. "Sorry about bypassing your security. We tried hailing, but our communication systems don't seem compatible." Security Chief Nax Rai's upper arms reached for his weapons, while his lower ones activated his emergency shields. "Don't move. You're in violation of 17 different security protocols." Hannah raised her hands slowly, still smiling. "Of course. My apologies. Would you like me to go back outside and come in through the proper channels?" Outside, Nax Rai's voice rose several octaves. "We're in space." "I know," she replied, as if offering to take a casual stroll through vacuum was perfectly normal. "I've got my suit in the ship. Won't take but a minute." I decided to intervene before Nax Rai's head exploded. "That won't be necessary, Ambassador Blackwood. I'm Krill X, Galactic Confederation Ambassador for Diplomatic Relations. Welcome to Nexus Prime." As we walked to the diplomatic wing, I observed our guest carefully. She moved with a grace that seemed at odds with humanity's higher gravity origins. Her vital signs, according to my sensory implants, were remarkably steady for someone meeting aliens for the first time. "I hope you don't mind," she said, "but Earth would like to formally apply for membership in the Galactic Confederation." Behind us, I heard Nax Rai making choking sounds. "Your species hasn't even unified its planetary government." "Oh," that Hannah waved dismissively. "We figured it was easier to achieve faster than light travel than to get everyone on Earth to agree on toppings for pizza, so we decided to focus on the simple stuff first." I couldn't tell if she was joking. This, I would learn, would become a common problem when dealing with humans. The diplomatic wing's AI announced our arrival warning. "Unknown species detected. Threat level unable to compute. Error. Error. Please update classification protocols." "Don't mind that," I assured Hannah. "It does this with all new species." "Oh good," she replied. "I was worried it was because of the quantum fluctuation drive. It tends to confuse most scanning systems." I stopped mid-stride. "The what drive?" "The quantum fluctuation drive. That's how we got past your barriers. The ship kind of exists and doesn't exist at the same time. Makes parking a real pain, let me tell you." Nax Rai, who had been following us at a safe distance, began stress molting. As we entered the diplomatic conference room, Hannah placed her briefcase on the table. "I've brought some gifts, traditional for first meetings in human culture." Before any of us could stop her, she opened the case and began pulling out bottles of various shapes and sizes. "This is called whiskey. And this is vodka. Oh, and this one's tequila. Don't worry. Our medical team analyzed your biological data from your observation satellites. They're all safe for most carbon-based life forms to consume." "Your what satellites?" Nax Rai wheezed. "The ones you thought were cloaked," Hannah said sympathetically. "Don't worry about it. We just wanted to make sure we brought appropriate gifts. Now, who'd like to try some human diplomatic traditions?" As I watched Nax Rai's colors shift through several warning spectrums, I realized that our careful plans for managing humanity's introduction to galactic society might need some revision. Hannah Blackwood had been on our station for less than an hour, and she'd already violated our security, confused our AI, and was now proposing to introduce alien biology to human intoxicants. And somehow, despite everything my diplomatic training was telling me, I found myself reaching for one of those bottles. After all, if humans had already scanned our biological data without us noticing, the damage was already done. To new friendships, Hannah raised her glass, that same warm smile never leaving her face. I had no way of knowing that this was just the beginning of how Hannah Blackwood would turn our carefully ordered galactic society on its head. The grand reception hall buzzed with nervous energy as representatives from 200 species gathered to welcome humanity into galactic society. Supreme Counselor Prax had insisted on following proper protocols, despite my concerns about letting Hannah Blackwood loose in a room full of the galaxy's most important diplomats. "Everything will be fine," Hannah assured me, adjusting her formal Earth attire. I promised to be on my absolute best diplomatic behavior. The fact that she felt the need to specify diplomatic behavior should have been my first warning. The reception began smoothly enough. Hannah charmed the Silicon consciousness with questions about their quantum processing capabilities. She fascinated the Vaporous Collective by asking about their experiences as a gaseous species. She even managed to make the hive mind laugh, a sound like tinkling crystal that hadn't been heard in the chamber for centuries. Then Ambassador Lyra Zaid rushed into the hall, bioluminescent patterns flashing emergency signals. "Pirates. The Crimson Claw fleet just dropped out of hyperspace. They're demanding we hand over control of the station." The room erupted into panic. The Silicon consciousness began backing up their memories. The Vaporous Collective started condensing in fear. Supreme Counselor Prax activated the emergency protocols, causing barrier shields to materialize around the reception hall. "Everyone stay calm," Prax announced. "Our defense fleet will handle this situation." Actually, Hannah raised her hand like a student in class. "I think there might be a problem with that plan." Every eye in the room turned to her. "Your defense fleet is currently experiencing some technical difficulties. Their quantum navigation systems seem to be scrambled." "What do you mean scrambled?" Prax X demanded. "Well, when we noticed them running battle simulations against Earth ships last week, we might have left them a small gift. A quantum virus that activates when their weapons power up. Nothing harmful. They're just temporarily unable to tell up from down." The silence in the room was deafening. "You did what Nax Rai screeched." "Don't worry," Hannah said brightly. "I can fix this. Would anyone mind if I borrowed the station's communication system?" Before anyone could object, she pulled out what looked like a simple metal pen from her pocket. With a quick twist, it projected a holographic interface into the air. "Ambassador Blackwood," I said carefully, "what are you doing?" "Oh, just calling for some backup. We had a feeling something like this might happen, so I took the precaution of having a few friends nearby." The main viewing screen flickered to life, showing the pirate fleet approaching. 50 heavily armed ships, their blood-red hulls bristling with weapons. "This is Captain Vargas of the Crimson Claw," a gravelly voice announced over the comm. "Surrender your station or be destroyed." Hannah stepped up to the communication panel, still smiling pleasantly. "Captain Vargas, this is Ambassador Hannah Blackwood of Earth. I'm afraid I can't let you destroy this station. I'm in the middle of a lovely diplomatic reception, and it would be terribly rude to our hosts." Laughter boomed through the speakers. "Earth? That primitive backwater? Stand aside, little human. This is galactic business." "I was really hoping you'd be reasonable about this," Hannah sighed. She pressed a button on her pen. "Protocol Omega, please." Suddenly, the space around the pirate fleet shimmered. 5 human ships phased into existence, appearing from seemingly nowhere. But they weren't warships. They looked more like. "Are those cargo haulers?" Nax Rai asked incredulously. "Civilian transport vessels," actually, Hannah corrected. "We try not to militarize our space fleet. Sets a bad precedent." The pirates were laughing so hard their transmission was breaking up. "You're threatening us with cargo ships." "Oh no, not threatening. That would be very undiplomatic of me. I'm simply introducing you to our gravity manipulation technology. You see those civilian ships? They're about to demonstrate why humans decided artificial gravity was boring. Before anyone could process her words, the human ships activated some kind of field. The space around the pirate fleet began to warp and twist. Their ships started spinning slowly at first, then faster and faster, being pulled into a complex gravitational dance that looked suspiciously like. "Is that the Terran Macarena?" I asked, recognizing the pattern from my studies of human culture. "Jason has a weird sense of humor," Hannah shrugged. "He's the one who programmed the gravity choreography. We find it helps to make potentially stressful situations more entertaining." The pirate fleet, now thoroughly tangled in what appeared to be a gravitational line dance, had gone silent. Now then, Hannah addressed the stunned pirates. "Would you like to surrender, or should we try the Terran waltz next? I should warn you, it involves a lot more spinning." We surrender." Captain Vargas's voice was notably higher pitched than before. "Wonderful," Hannah beamed. "Please shut down your engines. Our ships will tow you to the nearest authorities. Oh, and we'll need to keep your quantum drives as a small payment for the dance lesson." As the human ships began carefully extracting the pirate fleet from their gravitational tangle, the reception hall remained absolutely silent. The silicon consciousness had crashed and was rebooting. The vaporous collective had solidified in shock. Supreme Counselor Prax's 4 eyes were blinking out of sync. Well, Hannah turned back to the stunned crowd. That was exciting. "Now, who would like to try some more of that Earth whiskey? I find it pairs wonderfully with post-crisis discussions about gravity manipulation technology trades." I watched as the galaxy's most powerful diplomats scrambled to be the first in line for a drink with the supposedly primitive human ambassador. Somehow, in the span of 10 minutes, Hannah Blackwood had revealed that humans had quantum virus capabilities, undetectable cloaking technology, and could literally make their enemies dance to Earth music using gravity itself. And she did it all without firing a single shot. "You know," she whispered to me as she poured drinks, "we really did come in peace. It's just that humans have a slightly different definition of peaceful problem solving." Looking at her innocent smile, I finally understood why Earth had chosen Hannah Blackwood as their ambassador. She wasn't just harmless. She was humanity's way of showing the galaxy exactly how dangerous harmless could be. The emergency session of the Galactic Confederation Council was the most chaotic I'd ever witnessed. 3 days had passed since the pirate incident, and the political landscape was shifting faster than a vaporous collective in a windstorm. They turned our ships into dance partners. Ambassador Lyra's bioluminescence was strobing in agitation. How are we supposed to respond to that? With an invitation to the next dance, obviously Hannah suggested from her newly appointed seat in the chamber. She'd been granted emergency observer status, much to the confusion of everyone involved. Supreme Counselor Prax raised all 4 of his hands for silence. "The issue before us is clear. The humans have demonstrated technologies we didn't know were possible, using methods we can't detect, while claiming to be a level 2 civilization." "About that," Hannah interjected, "we never claimed to be level 2. You just assigned us that rating. We were trying to be polite by not correcting you." The silicon consciousness representative's matrix flickered in distress. "Are you saying humans deliberately understated their capabilities?" "Not exactly," Hannah smiled. "We just figured it would be rude to show up and announce that your classification system doesn't really apply to us. For instance, your level 5 civilizations master quantum mechanics, right?" Nods and gestures of agreement around the chamber. "Well, we sort of skipped that step. We went straight from splitting atoms to quantum tunneling because one of our scientists got frustrated with conventional physics. She decided the universe was being unnecessarily difficult and found a workaround." "That's not how science works." The silicon consciousness protest caused several nearby data screens to glitch. "Tell that to Dr. Amanda Pierce. She won 3 Nobel Prizes for proving that the impossible was only impossible if you respected its opinion on the matter." I watched in fascination as the council tried to process this information. The hive mind was developing what appeared to be a collective headache. "Let me see if I understand," Prax said carefully. "Humans achieve technological breakthroughs by ignoring the rules." "Not ignoring them," Hannah corrected. "We just treat them more like guidelines. Suggestions, really. For example, your society developed FTL travel by mastering quantum physics over centuries. We did it because a grad student wanted to visit her girlfriend on Mars for the weekend, and didn't want to wait 6 months for planetary alignment. The chamber erupted again. I noticed several representatives discreetly attempting to contact their government's scientific divisions. This brings us to the trade agreements. Prax continued, trying to restore order. 17 species have already submitted requests for human gravity manipulation technology. Oh, that's not even our good stuff, Hannah said cheerfully. Wait until you see what we can do with probability manipulation. Though I should warn you, the quantum uncertainty drive does have some odd side effects. Sometimes it creates temporary alternate timelines where everything's exactly the same except all the colors are slightly different. Nax Raya, who had been surprisingly quiet, finally spoke up. Are you saying humans have mastered probability itself? Mastered is a strong word. We just convinced it to cooperate occasionally. The math involved gave our best physicists migraines until they stopped trying to make it make sense and just accepted that sometimes the universe likes to joke around. I watched as the vaporous collective began to form small storm clouds of confusion. The silicon consciousness was running so many probability calculations they were beginning to overheat. Ambassador Blackwood, I ventured, are you suggesting that human scientific advancement is based on not taking no for an answer from reality itself? Pretty much. We find the universe is much more cooperative if you approach it with a sense of humor. Did you know we solved cold fusion by accident? Someone spilled coffee on a quantum computer, and instead of short-circuiting, it achieved perfect atomic harmony for 3 minutes. We still don't know why, but we can replicate it as long as you use the right blend of coffee. The council chamber had gone very, very quiet. This explains so much, Prax muttered. The random appearance of their ships, the impossible sensor readings, the fact that their ambassador keeps producing Earth beverages from a briefcase that's clearly too small to hold them. Hannah looked down at her briefcase innocently. Oh, this? It's just bigger on the inside. Another accident, actually. We were trying to make more efficient storage containers for spacecraft and ended up with what we call TARDIS technology. One of our scientists was a big fan of old Earth entertainment shows. You invented space manipulation technology because of a television program. The silicon consciousness was now smoking slightly. Well, we had to call it something. Besides, who hasn't looked at the fundamental laws of space-time and thought they could use a little more flexibility? I watched as the council representatives struggled with this new understanding of humanity, a species that treated universal constants as polite suggestions. A civilization that achieved technological breakthroughs through a combination of determination, accident, and apparently pop culture references. I move that we create a new classification specifically for humans, Ambassador Lyra suggested. Her patterns had shifted to what I recognized as resigned amusement. We clearly need one. That's very kind, Anna beamed, but unnecessary. We're really just here to make friends and maybe trade some of our less reality-bending technologies. Speaking of which, would anyone like to see our cats? We've figured out how to translate their meows into any language. Turns out they've been giving us scientific advice all along, we just weren't listening properly. As the council dissolved into yet another round of chaos, I couldn't help but wonder if the universe itself was secretly enjoying the humans as much as they seemed to enjoy tinkering with it. After all, any species that could make pirates dance the Macarena using gravity clearly had a special relationship with reality. 2 weeks after the council meeting, everything went spectacularly wrong. The Crimson Claw pirates, apparently not learning their lesson from the impromptu space dance party, returned with reinforcements. 300 ships dropped out of hyperspace, surrounding Nexus Prime. Their weapons are powered up, Nax Rei reported from the security center, and they've adapted to our quantum virus. They're demanding Hannah Blackwood be turned over to them. Hannah, who was in the middle of teaching the vaporous collective how to make cloud shapes, looked up with interest. Oh, they want to talk to me specifically. How nice. Nice, Prax's voice cracked. They have enough firepower to turn this station into cosmic dust. Don't worry, Hannah said, reaching for her ever-present briefcase. I came prepared for this sort of thing. Standard diplomatic precautions. Standard diplomatic, I started to ask, then watched in amazement as she pulled out what appeared to be a small potted plant. Everyone, meet Betty. Hannah held up the plant proudly. She's a perfectly normal earth fern. Well, mostly normal. We made some minor adjustments. The main viewing screen crackled to life, showing the scarred face of the new Crimson Claw leader. Ambassador Blackwood, your interference has cost us billions in lost revenue. Surrender now, or we start shooting. Hi there, Hannah waved cheerfully at the screen. Before you start shooting, I should probably mention Betty here. She's very sensitive to quantum fluctuations, like say the kind caused by high-powered energy weapons. The pirate leader blinked in confusion. You're threatening us with a plant. Threatening? No, just making you aware of the situation. You see, Betty here is what we call a probability anchor. She has a slight tendency to redistribute unfavorable quantum events to more favorable outcomes, usually in a radius of about, several light minutes. What is she talking about? The pirate demanded, looking at his subordinates. She's saying I explained, finally understanding why Hannah had been tending to that plant so carefully for the past 2 weeks, that if you fire those weapons, nobody knows what they'll actually hit. Could be us, could be you, could be that moon over there. Betty gets to decide. That's ridiculous, the pirate leader slammed his fist down. Plants don't control quantum probability. Usually, no, Hannah agreed. But we got the idea from this old Earth game called Hot Potato. Instead of passing around a harmless object that might inconvenience one person, we created a harmless plant that might redistribute the energy of several hundred warships to, well, anywhere really. Betty's quite creative. The plant's leaves rustled slightly, despite the lack of wind in the station. You're bluffing, the pirate leader growled. Fire all weapons. 300 ships fired simultaneously at Nexus Prime. 300 energy beams streaked across space. And then, to everyone's astonishment except Hannah's, they turned into butterflies. Not energy patterns that looked like butterflies. Actual, living, multicolored butterflies, now floating peacefully in space. Oh, that's new, Hannah commented, jotting something down in a small notebook. Usually she just redirects the energy. Betty must be feeling artistic today. The pirate fleet hung motionless in space. The butterfly swarm, seemingly unaffected by the vacuum, began arranging itself into complex patterns. Are they spelling something? Nax Rai squinted at the screen. Indeed, the space butterflies were forming words. Peace is nice. Violence is boring. Have a lovely day. Your plant turned our weapons into Lepidoptera. The pirate leader's voice had risen several octaves. Betty's a pacifist, Hannah explained. She believes in creative solutions to conflict, though the butterflies are definitely a new touch. Our probability manipulation devices usually stick to basic physics violations. Basic physics violations, the silicon consciousness repeated faintly, like it's a minor programming parameter. The pirate leader had gone very quiet. What else can that plant do? Oh, we try not to ask too many questions about that, Hannah said cheerfully. The last scientist who tried to fully analyze a probability anchor ended up temporarily becoming his own grandmother. The paradox sorted itself out eventually, but his family reunions are still a bit awkward. I watched as the pirate fleet began to slowly back away. Just to be clear, Hannah called out, those butterflies are now quantum entangled with your weapons systems. Every time you try to fire, you'll get more space butterflies. They're quite friendly, but they do tend to form book club discussion groups in the most inconvenient places. Book clubs, the pirate leader whispered. Mostly classic Earth literature. Though last time they were very enthusiastic about translating war and peace into interpretive dance. The pirate fleet fled so fast they left afterimages. Once they were gone, everyone turned to stare at Hannah and Betty. The plant's leaves waved in what I could have sworn was a satisfied manner. Ambassador Blackwood, Prax said carefully, did you just defend this station with a houseplant that turns weapons into literature-loving butterflies? Well, we couldn't bring obvious weapons, Hannah explained. That would have been undiplomatic. Betty is technically a peace offering. She offers peace whether you want it or not. And the butterflies. A complete surprise, honestly. Though it makes a certain sense. Butterflies are very peaceful, and they go through remarkable transformations. Rather like weapon energy being transformed into matter, when you think about it. But it's impossible. The silicon consciousness was practically wailing. Only mostly impossible, Hannah corrected, and mostly impossible is practically the same as slightly possible, if you look at it from the right quantum angle. More tea, anyone? Betty likes chamomile. She says it helps her focus her probability fields. As I watched the space butterflies begin what appeared to be a book club discussion about Jane Austen, displayed in formation against the backdrop of stars, I realized that humanity's definition of peace was going to take some getting used to. Don't worry, Hannah patted my shoulder, somehow knowing my thoughts. Betty promises to turn the butterflies back into energy once they finish their literary analysis, though she suggests we might want to clear the area when that happens, apparently. Their review of Pride and Prejudice is going to be rather energetic. The Grand Council chamber felt different during the emergency reclassification hearing. Perhaps it was the space butterflies that had taken up residence in the upper atmosphere, still debating literary classics. Or maybe it was Betty, the probability-bending fern, now officially granted observer status alongside her human companion. The council recognizes Ambassador Hannah Blackwood of Earth, Prax announced, all four eyes fixed nervously on Betty. The plant's leaves rustled appreciatively. Thank you, Supreme Counselor. Hannah stood, straightening her suit. Before we begin, I should mention that Earth has received 73 trade requests, 200 diplomatic overtures, and 1 marriage proposal from various member species. Marriage proposal, I whispered. The Silicon Consciousness is very impressed with our quantum computing capabilities, she whispered back, though I had to explain that humans can't actually merge our consciousness with their crystal matrix. Well, not on the first date anyway. Prax cleared his throat. We are here to discuss humanity's true technological status. Recent events have made it clear that our initial assessment was inadequate. Oh, that reminds me, Hannah brightened. I have good news about the space butterflies. They've agreed to return to their energy state once they finish their current book, though they're requesting we set up a permanent quantum library for future literary discussions. The Vaporous Collective, which had become surprisingly fond of the butterflies, formed happy little cloud shapes. Ambassador Prax pressed on. We need to understand humanity's actual capabilities. No more surprises. Well, that's a bit tricky, Hannah said. We're not entirely sure of our capabilities ourselves. Things keep happening by accident. Just last week, someone at NASA tried to make a better coffee machine and accidentally invented a device that lets you taste colors. That's not possible, the Silicon Consciousness began, then stopped. Never mind. Please continue. The point is, Hannah explained, humans don't really think in terms of technological levels or capability classifications. We just see problems and think up solutions. Sometimes those solutions work in ways we didn't expect. Like Betty here, she was supposed to be a simple quantum stabilizer for FTL travel. The probability manipulation was a complete surprise. She just decided that was her calling in life. The plant preened. Are you saying, Ambassador? Lyra's bioluminescence pulsed with disbelief, that humanity's greatest achievements are accidents? Not all of them. Some were entirely on purpose, like our planetary defense system. The chamber went very quiet. What planetary defense system? Nax Rai asked carefully. Oh, right. I should probably mention that. See, all those satellites you thought were for entertainment broadcasts. They're actually part of a quantum-entangled network that can temporarily shift Earth slightly out of phase with regular spacetime if needed. We call it the well that's not good protocol. You can move your entire planet out of reality. The Silicon Consciousness was smoking again. Only for about 20 minutes at a time, though we did accidentally create 17 parallel Earths during testing. They're all slightly different. Earth 7 has purple grass. And Earth 12 is exactly the same except everyone's left-handed. We get together for interdimensional pizza parties sometimes. I watched as the council tried to process this information. The hive mind had gone completely silent, possibly to prevent their collective consciousness from short-circuiting. So Prax said slowly, when you arrived here with no weapons, no defenses, and only a briefcase. And Betty, you were actually representing a civilization that can manipulate probability, redirect energy through houseplants, create quantum butterflies, shift planets through dimensions, and apparently holds multi-universal pizza parties. When you put it that way, it sounds almost impressive, Hannah mused. Though you forgot about the coffee-based cold fusion. That's still one of my favorites. The taste color thing is fun too, though it makes breakfast a bit noisy. Noisy? I couldn't help asking. Colors have very distinct sounds when you can taste them. Purple is particularly chatty. The council chamber erupted into a cacophony of voices, appendages